All right, let's get into it. Today we are diving deep into a really fascinating spiritual concept, ascended masters. I mean, it's a feeling we've all had, right? That little wish for some expert advice, a nudge in the right direction from someone who's already figured it all out.
Well, according to some spiritual beliefs, that team actually exists. And yep, they're known as ascended masters. So what's the deal with them? Let's take a closer look.
Cosmic mentors for humanity. So what does that even mean? We're going to unpack this idea that these figures are basically benevolent, super wise teachers for all of us.
We're going to dive right in and explore who these beings are and, just as importantly, how people say they actually interact with our world.
Okay, first things first, let's get a handle on the basics. What exactly is an ascended master?
So here's the core idea. Think of it like this. These are spiritual beings who've basically graduated from the whole cycle of reincarnation here on Earth. They've learned all the lessons, passed all the tests, and instead of just moving on, they've chosen to stick around on a higher plane to help guide the rest of us. Okay, so this helps paint a clearer picture, right? They've transcended the whole life/death thing. They're way past human ego and all that drama. They are self-realized, and their whole purpose is to serve humanity. And get this, they can supposedly travel between dimensions. That's why they get that title, Master Teachers.
So, who's on this divine team? Let's meet some of the heavy hitters, the figures who pop up again and again in the source material.
Right off the bat, you can see how figures from major world religions are part of this. You've got Lord Yeshua, that's the ascended form of Jesus, who's all about love, compassion, and healing the heart. Then there's Lord Buddha, guiding us toward enlightenment and inner peace. And Lord Krishna, who brings that energy of joy, love, and embracing new adventures.
And of course, we have these incredible archetypes of the divine feminine. There's Kuan Yin, the embodiment of compassion and mercy. You have Mother Mary, representing that deep, nurturing, protective energy, especially for children. And then there's Pallas Athena. She's all about strength, confidence, and truth. The source material even notes she has, let's say, very little patience for drama and whining, which is pretty great.
Wow, this pledge right here, it just perfectly captures Kuan Yin's whole deal. It's this incredible vow of total selflessness. I mean, the idea of a bodhisattva is someone who's earned their nirvana but chooses to stay behind to help every single other creature. That's a really powerful thought.
The team isn't just from traditional religions, it gets mystical too. You've got Saint Germain, who's all about transformation and a kind of spiritual alchemy. Then there's Thoth, the ancient Egyptian god of knowledge. Apparently, he's the one to call on if you have writer's block. And then there's Merlin. Yes, that Merlin. He's here to bring in that playful, magical energy and remind us to find the wonder in our everyday lives.
So some of these masters come with their own, spiritual tools, you could say. Saint Germain's violet flame is a perfect example. It's basically a 3-step process for spiritual alchemy. First, you pinpoint some negative energy or thought. Then you call on this violet flame to purify it. And finally, you visualize that negativity being totally transformed into positive light. Pretty cool concept.
Okay, so we've met some of the team. We know who they are, in theory. But what about the how? How do people actually claim to communicate with them? Let's dig into a personal story from one of our sources to see how it supposedly works.
The word you hear a lot is channeling. And what that means really is acting as a conduit for messages from these higher spiritual realms. And to make this more concrete, the source material gives us a really detailed personal journey from a channel named Blake Cahoon.
So, let's trace her journey. It all started back in 2005 with her first contact, but the real game changer was in 2010. She says she was greeted on an astral plane by a whole group, including Saint Germain and Merlin. And that experience was so profound that it completely changed her path, leading her to eventually rename her company in 2015 to better reflect what she saw as her life's mission.
Okay, but here's where it gets even bigger. It turns out that, in this belief system, the Ascended Masters are actually just one piece of a much, much larger cosmic puzzle.
Yet the sources talk about this whole divine guidance team that's way more than just the masters we've met. We're talking about beings from other star systems, Orion Master Guides, the Galactics from places like Arcturus and the Pleiades. And it doesn't stop there. It also includes multidimensional beings like nature spirits and elementals, the whole shebang.
So what this really shows us is the incredible scale of this belief system. It's like a massive cosmic directory of mentors. It's not just figures from our own history and myths, but this huge network of guides from all across different dimensions and galaxies who are supposedly all there ready to help out.
And that really brings us to our final thought for today. You know, this whole concept of Ascended Masters taps into something really fundamental, that human need for a great mentor. So let's step back from the specifics for a second and just think about it. If you could get wisdom from any figure, from history, from mythology, from anywhere, who would you pick? And more importantly, why?